NFL free agency frenzy this year has been very interesting. I'm gonna help you block out the noise, if you will, because a lot of these free agency moves have changed the dynamic in the Dynasty fantasy football community. And I feel like it's easy to get lost in how many free agency moves, signings, people getting released from teams, and so on. So, in this video, I'm going to give you my top 5 free agency moves and why I think they're good free agency moves and why I think they're good players you should try and trade for as we approach the Dynasty rookie drafts, because there can be value had in a time like this as we approach and people are itching to make moves for their teams. So, without further ado, this is Dynasty Dilemma, and we are talking free agency frenzy. The first move I saw in free agency that I was feeling has to be Justin Fields to the New York Jets. I really liked they committed 2 year 40 million to Justin Fields, obviously 20 mil per. It's a decent commitment, decent enough to know that he's gonna most probably start, but it's also still team friendly kind of deal because it doesn't take too much cap space if Jets still want to make some additions in this free agency or the next. I would say Justin Fields is a first round pick. Okay, he was taken 11th overall in 2021. He also then in 2022 backed that up with an 1,000-yard rushing season and QB1 finishes in fantasy. So we have seen flashes of Justin Fields being a more than serviceable quarterback for your dynasty teams. And I do think he's a player you should consider trading for if you're QB needy, whether you're a contender or a rebuilder, just because he's still only 25 years old. I think in terms of what I would draft for him or draft picks, I would probably draft pick around a early to mid 2025 first. Sorry, not first, 25 second. As in this rookie draft coming up, from mocks that I've done recently, it seems to kind of pop up with like Jackson Dart or Jalen Milrow, which I do think are good talents. However, we have no idea who they're going to be playing for, what situation they're going to be in. Will they be deemed the starter? Will they be deemed the backup? At least with Justin Fields, it's way more clear. And I think he's someone everyone should probably take a flyer on. It's at least worth the risk because ultimately he's going to be in a good situation. He's with a new coach, I understand, in Aaron Glenn. However, he's a coach who understands the stress a dynamic dual threat quarterback like Fields can apply to NFL defenses. And he's shown it before. We just want to see that level of consistency. So I would consider picking up Justin Fields. I've put some suggestions for trades I will possibly consider. I'd probably trade him for a Chuba Hubbard, or I would trade him for a Sam Darnold, who I think has gone to a worse situation. Ultimately, Fields is back with his number one wide receiver in college and Garrett Wilson. So there's an Ohio State reunion as well. But yeah, I think he's definitely a quarterback we should all be considering. You can get extremely good value for someone who I think is going to produce at least 16, 17 points per game, which can be invaluable, especially in Superflex 2QB team leagues. The next interesting free agency move I like is DK Metcalf going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was initially traded by the Seattle Seahawks for a 2025 second, and then he went and signed a 5 year, 150 mil extension with the Steelers. So, boy, that's a commitment, right? I do feel like DK Metcalf is who we want George Pickens to be. He's a physical alpha wide receiver. He's never had less than 900 yards in his first 4 seasons in the NFL. First 4 or 5. I'll fact check that later. However, he's a very consistent wide receiver in the NFL. I think he's going to bring a certain level of security to the Steelers' offense. And I think this only benefits George Pickens, who last season couldn't quite prove he's a 1A. He might still be a wide receiver 1. However, with Metcalf coming into the building with that level of commitment, it just kind of shows me maybe the team could see Metcalf as a 1A, as I doubt they're going to pay both of them the same kind of money when it comes to time for Pickens to get paid when he finishes his rookie contract. So for now, very interesting landing spot. I have no idea who's going to throw them the ball. Lots of rumors say Aaron Rodgers is going to go to the Steelers, who has, of course, supported wide receiver 1s many years previous. To be honest, still put up decent numbers with Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson with the Jets last year. However, all still speculation. I just think Metcalf, you won't be disappointed. It might not be eye-popping numbers, but it can't be too low. So I feel like he's got wide receiver 2 floor with wide receiver 1 potential, of course. And that's why I like this move, because there's still question marks. And that's where you can take advantage of your league mates and gain some value. I would, at most expensive, give a mid 2025 first, as I would probably prefer DK Metcalf to any of the wide receivers that are coming out of the 2025 draft right now, especially because we already know their landing spot, which is very key for this time period as we lead up to Dynasty rookie drafts. So I'd probably trade away a Brian Robinson. I'd trade away a Jordan Addison for a DK Metcalf. And I wouldn't encourage you to do the same. However, I do think there would be good value in doing so to get a secure starter in your dynasty football teams. The next wide receiver who made a decent move in this free agency frenzy is Davante Adams. He is now joining up with Matt Stafford, Sean McVay, Puka Nacua at the LA Rams. And I'll put it simply, I've always been a fan of Davante Adams. I think he's an elite route runner. I understand he's getting older now. I think he's around 32. And he is kind of in an era where he's bouncing around teams, of course, trying to chase a championship. Let's be frank. All these players want to achieve a ring before they're done to almost validate their career. But I think Davante Adams wouldn't need a championship ring to end up becoming a Hall of Fame wide receiver. I still think he's serviceable for your dynasty football teams. I do think this is a much better situation, much better offense than he was in last season with the New York Jets. And look, it's Matt Stafford. Like, this guy hyper targets wide receivers. And who better than a Davante Adams? It's going to be clear Adams will be a red zone threat. I think he's going to put up wide receiver 1 numbers every other week, or he might end up going on a stretch of 4 or 5 games where he's getting hyper targeted, 10 targets per game minimum. And I just think overall, for Sean McVay to make this move and LA Rams to commit to Davante Adams, giving him a 2-year, $46 million deal, I think 26 mil guaranteed, he's going to be used. And he's going to have a floor of wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 numbers. So it's definitely a player you should be trying to trade for, and maybe holding if you feel like you have already and you feel like giving them away on the cheap. I think if you were to give away, I wouldn't give away for less than an early 2025 second. I think you might be able to still squeeze a late first for someone trying to trade for your Davante Adams. And to be honest, if you were trading for Davante Adams, I don't know, 109 is maybe the most expensive I would probably say go for. But I would only recommend that, of course, if you was a contender and you didn't need the 109 pick. However, anyway, Davante Adams, considering for a trade prior to rookie drafts, you might be able to get some amazing value. You might be able to get him for even like a mid to late second. And I think that's incredible value for a wide receiver of his caliber. The next free agency move I was feeling has to be Najee Harris, now going to the LA Chargers. Look, we saw what happened last season with J.K. Dobbins. There was a lot of doubt approaching the season. He's just come back off a lengthy injury, and the guy produced for maybe a lot of championship teams. John Harbaugh likes to run the football. I know this is a cheap deal. However, Najee Harris is an RB2 with potential to have lots of RB1 weeks now joining the LA Chargers. He's had 4 straight years, 1,000 rushing yards. I know it's just tipping over. However, that level of consistency is not one to turn your nose up at. I know it's maybe only 3.8, 3.9 yards per carry. However, it's fantasy. We're trying to get the guys who are getting into the end zone. And I feel like Najee Harris is definitely going to be a goal line back. He's an early down back, big, physical, and someone who I think the Chargers are going to rely on to keep their offense moving. Of course, it's a much better offense than the situation he was in with the Steelers. And I know it's not a sexy pick, okay? Najee Harris isn't really like, he's not Jamal Gibbs or like Bijan. Like he's not gonna get you off your chair every weekend. However, he's very serviceable running back, and I think if you are a contender, it's a move to make. If you're a rebuilder, maybe leave it there. He's only got a 1 year deal. 5.5 mil is not really the commitment that says he's going to be the running back for the future. And Chargers may even still make an addition in the rookie draft. I do think there's no Gus Edwards, there's no J.K. Dobbins. So the role currently right there is there for him. And that's where you can take advantage of your league mates and make trades for him, because right now it looks like he's going to be the main man, because even Kamani Vidal couldn't command as many touches as everybody potentially anticipated being the sleeper of 2024. So, yeah, I think if you're a contender, you can get Najee Harris on the cheap. He can be your RB2. He can be in your flex spot and produce solid numbers, because that's what this is all about. Last but not least, the next free agency move I was feeling had to be Evan Engram going to the Denver Broncos. Of course, previously of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Look, tight ends, I'm not sure what league dynamic you're in. They're not the most crucial position. However, maybe if you're in a tight end premium league or you're tight end needy, you don't have one anymore, or you're looking at like a Dallas got a little bit sideways. I think making a move for Evan Engram is intelligent. Look, this guy had 2 top 10 tight end finishes in 2 of the last 3 seasons. I believe it was 2 years ago. He had 114 receptions in the season. He's going to a Sean Payton offense. We all know Sean Payton loves his tight ends, and I believe he'll be the second receiving option after Courtland Sutton in the Broncos building. So there's value. The whole point of this video, there's value there. I think you could probably acquire him for a late second to early third, and that's great value for a player that I think will get, I'd say, 10 to 12 fantasy points per game, which could be really useful for a tight end position, because we're always scrambling for tight ends, aren't we? Somebody else might not be feeling Evan Engram going to the Broncos, and I feel like you could take advantage of that there. Players I would potentially trade for him, a Cole Kmet, a Rico Dowdle. I think those are players that, Cole Kmet's case, there's a lot of mouths to feed in Chicago Bears. I prefer Evan Engram because I know he's going to be at least one, like 2 or 3, option 2 or 3 in the team. And someone like Rico Dowdle, who's gone to Carolina Panthers, it's cool for like a year, but then is Jonathan Brooks going to come in and take over? There's still Chuba Hubbard there, who produced amazing RB1 numbers last season. So yeah, I like the stability of this move, and I feel like Evan Ingram going to the Broncos is only going to help Bo Nix. So I want a piece of that. Broncos were impressive last year, and I feel like Bo Nix can improve. So I would throw some shots and try and get me an Evan Ingram before the rookie drafts.